embellished ivory gown. A collective gasp rippled through the room. She smiled her trademark predatory smile, leaned in and whispered, "It's just cream, darling. Don't be dramatic." But she wasn't just trying to upstage me. During our first dance, she actually marched up, grabbed the DJ's microphone, and announced, "I have a special surprise from the mother of the bride." I froze, my heart pounding against my ribs, ready to burst into tears. That's when my husband, Liam, tightened his grip on my waist, leaned into my ear, and whispered, "Don't look at her, Jenny. Look at the back wall." I blinked back tears and looked. Suddenly, 300 heads turned toward the projector screen. My mother's smirk instantly vanished, her face turning a sickly, ash gray as the entire room began reading the undeniable proof of what she had done. My name is Jenny Bennett, and at 28 years old, I finally learned that the people who are supposed to protect you can sometimes be the ones who plot your absolute ruin. Growing up, our household was strictly divided by an invisible line. On one side was my brother, Austin, the golden child who could do no wrong in my mother's eyes, despite his constant, reckless financial disasters. On my side of the line was just me, working 2 jobs, paying my own way through college, and quietly enduring my mother Eleanor's endless, cold dismissal. But I always held on to one piece of hope. My late paternal grandmother, who saw exactly how Eleanor treated me, had left a secret legacy meant solely for my future. It was a beautiful, historic family home passed down through generations, along with a modest trust fund intended to ensure I would never be left stranded. Nana had bypassed my mother entirely, making sure the legal documents named me as the sole heir once I turned 25 or got married. For years, knowing that property and security existed was my safety net, the one thing that kept me sane whenever Eleanor reminded me that everything she owned would eventually go to Austin. I never spoke about it, wanting to keep Nana's final gift safe from my family's constant greed. I truly believed that when the time came, that inheritance would help me start a beautiful, independent life of my own. 3 years after turning 25, the moment finally came to open that safety net. Liam and I got engaged, and as we began planning our dream wedding, the reality of venue costs and down payments hit us. I decided it was time to finally access Nana's legacy. Smiling, I walked into the local probate office and the bank, ready to claim the historic family home and the trust fund. But the warmth in my chest instantly vanished when the bank manager looked at his screen, frowned, and told me the trust account had been closed for over a year. The balance was 0. Panicking, I rushed to the county records office to check on the historic house. My hands shook so violently I could barely hold the paperwork the clerk handed me. The house hadn't just been neglected. It had been quietly sold to a private developer 8 months prior. I stared at the official transfer deed, the room spinning around me. There, right under the line for the legal owner, was my name, written in elegant, cursive handwriting. But I hadn't signed it. I had never even seen this piece of paper before. I pulled out my phone, looking at a birthday card my mother had sent me the previous month. The looping J, the sharp slant of the letters, it was an exact match. Eleanor had systematically forged my signature on multiple legal affidavits, bypassed the estate executors, and completely liquidated my entire future behind my back. My own mother had stolen the only thing my grandmother left me, leaving me with nothing but a paper trail of absolute betrayal. Blood rushing in my ears, I drove straight to my mother's house. I slammed the forged documents onto the kitchen island right in front of Eleanor and Austin. My brother didn't even look up from his phone, but Eleanor just calmly took a sip of her coffee. When I demanded to know how she could steal my grandmother's legacy, she didn't even deny it. Instead, she looked at me with cold indifference and said, "Austin was facing jail time for a minor business misunderstanding, Jenny. He needed the cash immediately. Family comes first." I couldn't believe my ears. Her idea of family only ever applied to her golden child. Austin had pulled a fraudulent investment scheme, and to save him from the consequences of his own greed, Eleanor had willingly destroyed my future. When I threatened to go to the police, she chuckled, a sickening, patronizing sound. She told me that if I ruined my brother's life, She would make sure the entire extended family completely disowned me before my wedding day. She gaslit me into believing I was the selfish one for prioritizing my marriage over my brother's freedom. Before we move on to see what happened next, I want to ask you, my viewers, what would you do if you discovered your comment below with the city you are watching from? I love seeing how far these stories travel. Do you think I should have canceled the wedding right then and called the police? Or would you have played along to plan something bigger? Well, I chose the second option. I took a deep breath, pretended to let it go, and left her house. To make my mother believe she had completely won, I had to play the part of the defeated, obedient daughter perfectly. The next morning, I called Eleanor and forced my voice to crack with fake tears. I told her that she was right, that family was what mattered most, and that I wouldn't contact the authorities because I didn't want to cause a scandal right before my wedding. I could practically hear the arrogant, self-satisfied smirk through the phone line as she congratulated me on finally making a mature decision. Austin even sent a lazy text message thanking me for being a team player. But behind that mask of submission, Liam and I were working around the clock to build an airtight trap. We didn't just want to get angry. We wanted full legal justice. Liam contacted a forensic document examiner who quickly certified that the signatures on the property deed were definitive forgeries. Meanwhile, my tech-savvy bridesmaid helped me back up every single incriminating text message and email exchange. We compiled bank records showing the exact dates Eleanor drained the trust, alongside screenshots of her text messages explicitly admitting that she took my inheritance to cover Austin's fraudulent debts. We organized every single piece of evidence into high-definition digital slides. Liam and the bridesmaid quietly coordinated with the wedding venue's AV team, ensuring our presentation was loaded directly into the main projector system. Eleanor and Austin truly believed I was walking meekly into my wedding day with my head bowed in defeat, completely unaware that they had handed me every single weapon required to publicly dismantle their lives. The morning of my wedding arrived, and the atmosphere in the bridal suite was electric with anticipation. But the moment my mother stepped through the door, the air in the room completely turned to ice. Eleanor hadn't just ignored standard wedding etiquette. She had gone out of her way to execute a final, deeply malicious power move. She sauntered into the room wearing a stunning, floor-length, heavily embellished ivory gown that was an undeniable, direct replica of a bridal dress. My bridesmaids went completely silent, staring at her in absolute shock, but Eleanor just looked at me with an arrogant, mocking grin, smoothing down the fabric of her skirt as if she owned the venue. When my maid of honor politely pointed out that wearing white was completely inappropriate, Eleanor just scoffed loudly, waving her hand in dismissal. She walked right up to me, leaned down, and whispered, "It's just cream, darling. Don't be dramatic. You should be grateful I'm even here after all the fuss you made." I forced myself to smile and nodded silently, keeping my composure because I knew exactly what was waiting for her downstairs. The ceremony proceeded beautifully, with Liam holding my hands tightly at the altar, silently giving me the strength to get through the final hours of this charade. As the guests transitioned into the main reception hall for dinner, I could see Eleanor floating around the room, soaking up attention in her white gown and whispering lies to our relatives about how much she had financially contributed to our special day. The stage was perfectly set, and she was walking right into the center of it. The moment for our first dance arrived, and Liam and I stepped onto the center of the floor. The lights dimmed, and our song began to play softly. But before we could even finish the first verse, the music abruptly cut out. I looked up to see my mother marching confidently across the room. She grabbed the DJ's microphone, her face lit with a self-satisfied smirk as she loudly announced, "I have a special surprise from the mother of the bride." A murmur went through the 300 guests as she prepared to deliver what she thought would be a humiliating, patronizing speech about my obedience. I froze, my heart hammering against my ribs, but Liam just tightened his grip around my waist. He leaned into my ear and whispered, "Don't look at her, Jenny. Look at the back wall." I blinked back my tears and turned my head toward the massive projector screen. At that exact moment, the AV team hit play. Suddenly, towering over the entire reception room, were massive, high-definition slides of the historic house's forged deed, the bank statements showing a zero balance, and the certified forensic handwriting analysis. Right next to the legal proof were enlarged screenshots of Eleanor's own text messages boasting about draining my inheritance to cover Austin's fraudulent debts. Gasps erupted across the room as 300 heads turned from the screen to look directly at my mother. Eleanor's smug smile instantly vanished, her face turning a sickly, ash-gray color under the spotlights. She tried to speak into the microphone, but her voice died in her throat as our entire family read the undeniable proof of her greed. The silence in the room was deafening, quickly broken by murmurs of absolute disgust from our relatives. My brother Austin tried to quietly slip toward the exit, but two police officers, whom Liam had subtly arranged to wait outside, stepped into the lobby and blocked his path. Eleanor dropped the microphone. The loud thud echoed through the speakers as she realized her social standing and her golden child's freedom were completely destroyed in a single moment. My aunt walked up, openly looking at Eleanor's white dress with utter contempt, and told her to get out. The officers escorted both my mother and brother out of the reception to take a formal report for grand larceny and felony forgery. 6 months have passed since that unforgettable night. The legal battle has been intense, but with our airtight digital evidence, Eleanor is currently facing major legal consequences, and Austin's previous fraud cases have been reopened. Liam and I sold what remained of the assets we recovered, cutting all toxic ties to start fresh. We are now happily building our true future together, surrounded only by people who genuinely love and support us. Now, I want to turn it over to you. What would you have done if you were standing in my shoes at that reception? Would you have exposed her so publicly, or handled? If you love twists like this, make sure to click on the 2 stories on your screen right now. They will definitely surprise you.